Yeah.
And you were together then?
Right. We were together
As
since
what?
we were 3 years old.
I see.
And we just groomed ourselves into it.
I feel like I did 18 years ago. It still hurts. And I feel like somebody should be held accountable.
Before the Grammys, before the Platinum Records, and long before anyone called them legends, Gene McFadden and John Whitehead were just two kids from North Philly with nothing but big voices and even bigger dreams. Their story isn't just about chasing fame. It's about fighting to be seen, refusing to stay silent, and daring to claim credit in an industry built to keep certain people in the background. From sharing stages with Otis Redding to penning the anthems that defined an entire generation, they left fingerprints all over the golden era of soul.
And it makes it easy.
But behind the hits and the spotlight was a rougher truth. Battles over money, addiction, betrayal, and loss that nearly swallowed them whole. This is the story of two unstoppable voices who turned their pain into music that still refuses to fade. Press play and hear what it sounds like when you never stop believing in yourself, no matter how high the cost.
Backstab was our first song we ever wrote.
You started out as singing.
They rolled out of North Philly with nothing but loud voices, huge ambitions, and zero interest in playing second fiddle to anybody. Gene McFadden and John Whitehead bumped into each other back in high school and clicked fast over their love for smooth harmonies. Pretty soon, they pulled together a group called the Epsilons. Their sound was so fresh it caught Otis Redding's attention, which felt like the universe just handed them a golden ticket.
And it makes it easy.
Otis didn't just think they were good. He brought them into his crew, took them on tour, and basically showed them what big-time music life looked like. But everything flipped upside down when Otis's plane crashed and took most of the Bar-Kays with it. It crushed the whole scene and left Gene and John without the one person who believed in them the most. Most folks would have called it quits right there, but Gene and John refused to disappear. They gave it another go with Stax Records, dropped a track called The Echo, and later switched their name to Talk of the Town. A couple more singles came out but didn't really take off. Still, they were starting to figure something out. They were even better at writing songs than just singing them. The real game changer showed up when they crossed paths with Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, the masterminds behind the rich, soulful sound coming out of Philly. Kenny and Leon brought them into their circle, and Gene and John turned out to be the secret sauce nobody knew they needed. One of their first big wins was a track for the Intruders about loving your mom, and it proved they knew how to mix hooks with feelings that hit home. From there, nothing could slow them down. Gene and John started stacking up hits like it was second nature. They cooked up Backstabbers for the OJs, a slick little warning about fake friends that turned into pure gold. Then they dropped Bad Luck and Wake Up Everybody for Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Songs that made people dance, but also made them think. They had their fingerprints on so many records from Teddy Pendergrass to Archie Bell that it felt like they were scoring the soundtrack to Black Life at the time. But the more they blew up, the more they got tired of feeling like invisible employees. Inside Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff's label, Gene and John were always respected, but never really treated like equals. Kenny and Leon called every shot, from who got paid what to whose names showed up in the credits. And even though Gene and John appreciated the shot they'd been given, it was maddening that no matter how many hits they wrote, people still expected them to stay in the background. That frustration started to light a fire under them. By the time the decade was wrapping up, they were ready to break out and prove they could be more than just behind-the-scenes guys. So they sat down and wrote the track that would change everything. Ain't No Stoppin' Us Now wasn't just some dance floor filler. It was their way of saying they were done being boxed in. Everyone at the label could feel it. Folks whispered that the song was basically a polite middle finger to Kenny and Leon, a way to say they were tired of being hidden. The big bosses weren't exactly jumping for joy. Word was, they tried to convince Gene and John to give the track to some act that was easier to manage, but the guys didn't budge. This was their story. and nobody else was going to claim it. When the song finally dropped, it blew up fast. It raced up the charts, sold millions, and turned into the anthem everybody needed. Weddings, graduations, block parties. People played it anytime they wanted to celebrate how far they'd come. Even years later, when Philly was partying over Joe Biden's win, that same bass line was blasting through the streets, proving the track never lost its spark.
I know we got a long, long way to go.
They started pushing harder for real credit, decent contracts, and a fair slice of the money. They didn't bother hiding that they knew exactly how much cash their songs were pulling in, and they wanted what was theirs. But in a business that thrived on lopsided deals, being upfront like that was risky. It didn't take long before people started calling them difficult. Around Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff's label, the rumors flew that their later songs got ignored on purpose as payback for not staying in line. Radio stations dragged their feet, adding their singles to playlists. All the promo money got rerouted to acts who were easier to control. Even when Gene and John kept dropping catchy records, the energy from the label had cooled way off. It stung. The same boldness that helped them win was now making them a headache for everyone in charge. And as the industry turned its back, personal demons stepped in to fill the void. It stung. The same boldness that helped them win was now the thing making them a headache for everyone in charge. Later on, they were blunt in interviews about how it felt watching their momentum fade, while artists with half their talent got every chance they deserved. But no matter what, Gene and John never stopped backing themselves. They knew that back then, black artists were supposed to stay forever thankful and never ask questions about the money trail. The second you spoke up, you got branded a problem. And that label stuck no matter how many hits you racked up or how often you proved you belonged. When the bills kept piling up, the politics got messy and the hits stopped rolling in. Gene and John started leaning on drugs just to get through it all. The addiction turned into another uphill battle they hadn't asked for. It wrecked their health, pushed people away, and made it almost impossible to stay locked in on their music. For two guys who'd made a name off songs about standing strong, it was pretty heartbreaking to watch everything fall apart behind the scenes. Things got even rougher for John. He ended up getting hit with a tax evasion case that landed him in prison for a bit. That alone could have been the end of his story. But John wasn't about to fade into the background. Not long after getting out, he dropped a solo album called I Need Money Bad, basically laying out just how rough things had gotten. The record didn't blow up, but it was proof he still had that same drive in him. By the time the next decade rolled around, life had totally reshaped where they stood. They weren't topping charts anymore, but Gene and John teamed up again, playing corporate parties and throwback shows where old fans still knew every word. Even in smaller rooms, they brought the same energy that had always made them special. Those performances were a reminder that even if the music business could chew you up, the bond between artists and the people who loved their songs could hang on through just about anything.
For almost 20 years, a Philadelphia family has been waiting for answers, for justice. But they won't give up. They're hoping one day police will be able to find out who murdered their loved one, John Whitehead.
No matter how hard they tried to hang on to that bond with their fans, life kept throwing punches. Gene got hit with news that changed everything. He had cancer spreading through his liver and lungs. For someone who was always so fired up and full of life, it felt unreal. He fought hard, going through rounds of chemo and radiation, doing everything he could to beat it back. Everyone around him admired how he faced it all with so much strength. But after 2 years of fighting, the cancer took over, and Gene passed away with his family by his side, just a day before his birthday. He left behind his wife, Barbara, and 4 kids who loved him more than anything. What made it all even heavier was that John Whitehead had died not long before. His death was the kind of nightmare nobody saw coming. John was outside his house in Philly, working on his car, when 2 guys rolled up with guns and shot him over and over. He was gone before anyone could help. He was only 55. Police believed they had been after someone else, which made the whole thing even harder for his family to process. Years later, The pain hadn't gone anywhere. John's daughter, Lakia, never stopped wanting answers. She said it still hurt just as much as it did that first morning. Nobody was ever charged, but detectives in Philly kept the case alive, hoping that fresh technology might finally bring some closure. People who knew John personally felt the loss deep. His friend, Anthony Williams, said he was more like family than anything else. Anthony was convinced that sooner or later, the people who did it would answer for what they'd done.